started.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Before we get started, I wanted to take a moment to introduce myself. I am Tasha Artelon, the new program coordinator for the San Diego Region Irrigated Lands Group. Kathy retired recently. Please feel free to reach out to me with any questions or requests for assistance. I'm more than happy to help guide you on the path to regulatory compliance. Today's webinar, which satisfies 1 hour of the annual water runoff education requirement, is presented by Christina from the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board. Thank you, Christina.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you to all of you. Thank you for the invitation. This is great. I really think these webinars are a great idea. So, so again, everyone can see my screen? We're good there? Okay. So my name is Christina Arias, and I am with the Regional Water Quality Control Board. I have been at the board for almost 20 years, actually. And I'm a water resource control engineer, and I've worked in several different programs. And I've been in our commercial agriculture regulatory program for about 3 years now. And I have to say that I have really enjoyed learning about the industry for the San Diego region. The farms here are just so different than what you think of in other parts of California. You know, thousands of small farms, lots of organic farming, and it's all very charming. So thank you for what you do. Okay, so the title of my talk is Keep It Clean, What You Need to Know About the San Diego Water Board's Ag Program. So I have you know, lots of slides and some pictures. Hopefully that'll be interesting and helpful to you. But I really want to encourage everybody to feel free to ask questions, and trying to leave enough time for discussion and questions, and we can hear about any concerns that you may have. So what I wanted to discuss today is a few things. Like, to get started, what is the San Diego Regional Water Quality Control Board? Why do we need an ag program in the first place? How do you as a grower comply? What should you expect if inspectors show up at your operation, either myself or my colleagues? And we'll spend a few minutes looking ahead at the future for the ag program. So we are part of the California Water Boards. We are a state agency, a branch of California EPA, and we have a main office in Sacramento called the State Water Resources Control Board, and there are 9 regional offices. So the boundaries of the regions follow major watershed boundaries. And if you look closer at our region, our jurisdiction stretches from the international border up through South Orange County and a little bit of Riverside County, as outlined by the red line. And these black lines delineate the major watershed boundaries. So a watershed is an area of land where, when it rains, all of the water drains to a common location. So it's usually a major creek, but because we're a coastal region, eventually all of the water drains to the Pacific Ocean. So the areas that are heavy in ag in our region is, let's see, this is the Santa Margarita watershed here that has Temecula Valley and Rainbow area. We also see a lot of ag in this watershed here. This is the San Luis Rey area. It includes East Oceanside, Vista, Escondido. So the mission of the Water Board is to preserve, enhance, and restore the quality of California's water resources and drinking water for the protection of the environment, public health, and all beneficial uses, and to ensure proper water resource allocation and efficient use for the benefit of present and future generations. So I grabbed that language from our website. It's very wordy. I think of it as really coming down to ensuring that our waters are fishable and swimmable. So it's our job to ensure that the waterways are safe for fishing and swimming, and also many other beneficial uses such as the protection of aquatic and terrestrial habitat areas. So it's our job to ensure that we have healthy ecosystems from the the headwaters of our watersheds all the way to the coastal estuaries and ocean and all the water bodies in between. So what we do is we administer discharge permits to different discharger groups. So the ag dischargers we wrote what we call the ag orders. So it's either called an order or a discharge permit. So we assess compliance with the permit provisions. And in cases where we find non-compliance, we also have enforcement authority, and that can range from a notice of violation all the way to some pretty substantial financial penalties. So I'm showing you nice pictures of the watershed, but as you can imagine, it's not that way everywhere. Now I'm showing you a picture of the Santa Margarita River and a condition we call eutrophic conditions or eutrophications. And that green mass there, that's algae. Those are thick algal mats that sometimes are apparent in our streams. And it's a nuisance, it's smelly, but more importantly, it doesn't allow for proper healthy ecological function. So what's happening is when a grower places fertilizer on the landscape and it rains and there's excess fertilizer, and fertilizer, as you know, has what we call nutrients. Nitrogen and phosphorus are the main nutrients, but what happens is it runs off into the nearest downstream water body and it feeds the algae. So the algae get this pulse of food and they grow into those large algal mats. And a couple things happen. So first of all, the sunlight is blocked. And so sunlight can't reach the underwater plants. Also, when the algae mats grow large and they start to die off, what happens is it consumes the available oxygen in the water body. So it's no longer available to the native critters there. And the fish kills happen, the fish die off, and no bueno for our streams. So now I'm showing you a satellite picture of a small drainage area in Escondido. So the drainage area is outlined in yellow. This is Highway 15 running north and south. And as you can see, the major land use happening here is some sort of agricultural practice. So these blue streams, these blue lines are all streams, and they all converge to this monitoring point here, where we have the green dot. And then it continues on and joins up with the San Luis Rey River. So what we've seen is that the water quality data available to us suggests that nutrients levels, nitrogen and phosphorus, are consistently over 10 times the water quality objectives designed to protect a healthy stream. So as you can see, that the levels are so high that brings us to why we need the ag program. So why do we need it? Because discharges from agricultural lands contribute to impairments. We've seen consistently elevated levels of nitrogen and phosphorus, suspended solids like sediment and other pollutants also downstream of ag areas. And because of that, we see eutrophic conditions. And by the way, I forgot to mention that this eutrophication is not unique to ag. We definitely see it throughout urbanized watersheds, especially downstream of highly residential areas. So this is a problem throughout the watersheds. And finally, we have we've seen elevated levels of nitrates in groundwater, but this groundwater is used for drinking. So if you have a well on site, and if you have elevated nitrates, as what we've seen in the data, it's not safe to drink. So who is included in this program? This program is for commercial operations with the intent to make a profit. And I have highlighted the word intent because it's intent to make a profit. It doesn't matter if you're not making a profit. It doesn't matter if you lost money. It doesn't matter if you use drip irrigation or your farm is really small or if you're doing organic farming. If you intend to make a profit, and we have criteria, and they are that you file an IRS Form 1040 or receive an agricultural use water rate or have a pesticide permit. If any one of those are true, then you must enroll in the permit. So I'd like to see right now, I'm going to pause for just a second and see if anybody has any questions on anything I've covered so far. I have a lot more slides with more pictures, but I just wanted to see if anybody has any discussion to share at this point.
And if you're not comfortable saying it out loud, you can put it in the chat box as well.
Yeah. I mean, if not, that's okay too. We can take questions at the end.
Can you hear
me?
I
see one hand up. Yes.
Yeah. As far as being involved with the San Diego Lands Group and paying those fees, is this what you're speaking about? Or is there another permit we're supposed to be getting?
No. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And you know what? Maybe the next slide, I think my next slide talks about that a little bit more. So yeah, if you're here, you're enrolled and you're in compliance with that portion of the permit. Yes. Okay, maybe I should keep going. So if somebody else had a question on that, but thank you. Okay, so the ag program goal. So the goal of the program is to prevent or minimize the discharge of waste to waters of the state. So the word waste can have any number of meanings. The easiest way for me to think about it's anything that's leaving your property that is not clean stormwater runoff. So that could mean excess sediment, can mean dissolved chemicals like pesticides and fertilizer, or it can mean litter. We need to prevent and minimize any waste from leaving the site. Waters of the state, that is a term that we use for our surface water streams and creeks, as well as the groundwater. Please keep in mind that my office has jurisdiction over these waters. So even if you have a creek in your property, bisecting your property, sure, it's on your property, but my office has jurisdiction and we all need to do what we can to prevent pollutants from reaching that waterway. And the idea is if we reach our goal, then beneficial uses will be supported. Okay, so back to the question about third-party groups. So how are we going to reach the goal? First of all, join a third-party group such as the San Diego Region Irrigated Lands Group. That is one of our third-party groups. If you're here listening to me now, that means you've joined a group, so good job. Thank you. You actually have the option to join as an individual, but it's really not cost effective. So if you join as an individual, you would have to hire a water quality professional to design and implement a water quality monitoring plan, and that gets expensive fast. So the other component is that you are to design a water quality protection plan, and I believe that is part of your notice of intent process. So what that is it's a plan saying what you're going to do. It's communication from you to me saying what you're going to do on your specific site to protect water quality. And even more importantly than the documentation is that you implement the management measures or the best management practices or BMPs. Those are all the same length, all different phrases for the same thing. The important thing is that you implement BMPs in the field. This program also contains visual inspections, training such as today's webinar, and another component is water board inspections. So the inspections are helpful because they can offer the growers feedback and sometimes require corrective measures. But we found that the inspections so far have been really helpful for us to understand the challenges in the field and for the growers to understand what our expectations are. So the management measure or BMP categories fall into some general areas. For example, erosion and sediment control BMPs, irrigation and nitrogen management, pesticide, chemical application and storage, waste management, and the use of buffer zones. So if we implement various things from these categories, that will do our part to prevent or minimize discharges of waste. So let's just say that I call you up and I say, hi, I'm Christina from the Water Board, and we're doing inspections next week, and we'll be on your property next week on Tuesday. So what should you do? Trust me, there's no need to panic. We are not intending to go out in the field with the intention to take enforcement on anybody. We are out there to, first and foremost, assist with compliance and educate. So we're probably a lot more reasonable than you may imagine, but we're there to help. But what I would suggest is that first you review your water quality protection plan, know what it says and know where it is. Check your BMPs. Do any of them, are they there? Are you doing what you said you would do in your plan? Do the BMPs need maintenance? Is your operation organized and tidy, or is it kind of a mess and has potential for pollutants to leave your site? Are the water courses and natural water pathways clear, or do they cross paths with debris or other sort of pollutants? It really boils down to what can you do to prevent or minimize the discharge of waste. So I'm going to show you some photos now from inspections that from either myself or my colleagues. And as I'm going through the different BMP categories, I'm hopeful that you can really think about how this situation can be improved at your own site. So first of all, I'm going to show you good BMPs for chemical or supply storage. So on the picture on the left, we asked the grower to show us where the pesticides were stored, and they had them in the steel container, very well labeled. And then they also had some, I think it was soil amendment, these big brown bags over here. On top of pallets. And what I really liked about this was that all of this was under this, this covering to minimize contact with water. And if there does happen to be a storm and there is runoff generated, the water will go underneath these bags here. So, so that looks good. And another site, much smaller site, they had a lot of equipment and chemicals outside kind of scattered around. And then they tidied up and put everything inside. And so if it rains, they can close those doors and minimize any potential contact with runoff. So that's good. So at one site, we found some, it looks like there's containers with diesel fuel stored in these cylinders. And I think this was liquid fertilizer back here in the big one. But the issue here is that, you know, these cans are rusty and they could be compromised if if something happens, if they get just degrade in the sunlight, or somebody runs into them with a vehicle or something. So if that were to happen, that would be like catastrophic. We'd have a big diesel pulse reaching the downstream waterway. That's not good. So what the grower did was they put in a concrete block with walls, and we call this secondary containment, so that if there was some sort of a spill, it's much easier to clean. So that looks good. Okay, now let's talk about waste management. And I would have to say that this is probably the second most concerning item that I see in the field. So there's a lot of these operations have trash and litter and debris just scattered throughout the site. And so in this first picture, this yellow can, I mean, that has hydraulic fluid. And what happens if the lid isn't secure and somebody runs into it, or just it falls over for some reason? That's not a good practice. That should be in secondary containment or covered. And we also routinely look for staining on the ground. If it were to rain, water would come into contact with this substance and dissolve it right away, and it would run off the site. And then finally, what we see a lot of is, debris piles of old rusty equipment. That equipment could have lines with hydraulic fluid or leaking oil, just rust, and that's not a good best management. That's not a best management practice at all. So it should either be covered or put away so there's no exposure. And also, I mean, the best thing would be to get the debris off site because it's no longer used. And I'll add in that we realize that that's not a fix that can happen overnight. And we'll work with you on what a suitable time frame would be to be able to get rid of that sort of debris pile. Yeah, so as long as we, stay in contact and communicate, we can work with you. Obviously, these types of issues are more urgent when it's in the middle of the rainy season, but please understand that we're here to work with you. So another example of what I'm talking about with waste is so this on the left here, this is a greenhouse where there's plastic sheeting on the roof, and it started to degrade in the sun, and it started falling off. And you can tell that this photo is between rain events, but the plastic just really degraded into small parts, and the wind and the water just made it flow everywhere. I mean, we saw these plastic sheets all throughout the site. And so the corrective action, it was the operators had to spend time to collect that litter and dispose of it properly. So it's just a good practice to have litter management so that you don't run into this type of situation. Okay, let's talk about stockpiles now. I know this is probably a common sight on so many operations. So the photo on the left, if you can see from the weather, it's a sunny day, and I won't necessarily say that I see a violation there. But as an inspector, I am always looking to see what are the threats to water quality. Where's the water going to go when it rains? Where's uphill? Where's downhill? I think you can tell that that road is fairly steep, and right behind me was a creek. So that stockpile is located in really close proximity to the creek. So what happens when it rains? I don't know if there's enough rain, it probably would mobilize. So I talked this over with the operator, and we talked about different options, either moving it to a location farther away from the creek or covering and berming it in preparation for rain. So over on the right, I have photos of some stockpiles, some compost stockpiles. And in this photo, I'm actually looking upstream. So the water in that photo is coming towards me. So this grower put up a fiber roll around the base of the stockpiles, and I'm saying good try because it can sometimes be an effective method to contain it, but in this case, the water just went underneath the fiber roll, and so it didn't do a whole lot. So I would think that a better way to go would be either to route that water around the stockpiles, or just move the stockpiles away from that little stream. So I'm constant looking for ways to keep the little streams clear. Okay, next topic is buffer zones. So this grower happened to have a little pond at the edge of his operation. And we were on an inspection and we saw right here waste stored right next to the water body. These are dead palm trees and they have no purpose. They're just, so he was just storing them there. I don't think they realized how far high the elevation of the water would get in the rainy season. So we have an impact to the waters. So we came back to the site, I don't know, a week or two later, and the operator had removed the dead palm trees away from the banks of this little pond. So we were happy with that response. Similarly, at the same little pond, I'm actually looking at a different direction. And again, on this left picture, I'm not going to say that I really see a violation, but the issue is here is this little pond is downstream from his operation, and there's a lot of potential for discharge of waste. So what he took it upon himself to install a silt fence between his operation and the pond. And it wasn't it shouldn't be relied on in full. I mean, it wasn't even installed completely correctly, but I have to say that I think this is a step in the right direction because that fence is visible for all his employees. So he's telling them to stay away from that creek. Don't let any of our operation materials go cross on the other side of that silt fence. And then that starts to give everyone on site the mentality that they need, that water body is an asset and needs to be protected. And so I think that's a visual reminder. So I saved the best for last because I think that erosion is probably the most challenging issue that I've seen throughout our region. And I would guess that the reason why it's so challenging here in San Diego is because of our topography and because of our soil types. I mean, we have either sandy soil that mobilizes very easily or clay soil that dissolves very easily. So, and with the hillsides, it's just challenging. And we've seen it multiple times. So this is a really big issue. So, um, in terms of, we call them erosion and sediment controlled BMPs. They're two different types. So erosion refers to kind of keeping the soil in place. And the best way to do this is with having vegetation there because the roots will keep the soil there. Other types of ways to do it, I don't know if you've seen jute netting or blankets, those are good erosion control. Once the soil particles have dislodged in a rain event and the or the sediment becomes fluid with the water, and then there's the strategy to slow the water down and settle out the sediment so that you're only letting clear water pass. That's called a sediment BMP. So we really need both. But so getting back to my photos here, we see this, your hillsides that within the operations are eroding and during the rain events, and also the dirt roads we frequently see eroding too. So, I mean, in some cases, I'm guessing that soil that could be useful for your operation, even your growing areas. I'm not sure. So, so why is sediment so bad? A couple of reasons. So think of it as from an infrastructure perspective. If we continuously have sediment laden water flowing in high volumes, then it starts to undermine our roadways. Telephone poles can fall down. Culverts can wash out. And so that picture, I should say, the picture on the left is adjacent to a large ag operation. So obviously this was taken right after a storm, but this area frequently floods and it's a lot of discharge from this operation. And then the other thing from the water quality point of view is that the sediment really it chokes the streams. The natural aquatic animals and plants, or I should say, I think the microscopic animals, they have a hard time with their normal ecological functions like foraging and nesting when there's these big sediment pulses. And it can clog fish gills, is what I've heard. And the other thing, so that's why sediment in and of itself is a pollutant. But also recall when we talked about those high nutrient loads, well, nutrients can attach themselves to sediment. So sediment can attach itself to not just nutrients, but also other chemicals. And so that's another way that we have high concentrations, not only of the pollutants, but of sediments downstream. Okay, so let's talk about the BMPs for these areas. So here we are back at that nursery. There's that little pond in the back, but this is my inspection a few days, maybe the day after a storm. We're looking downstream towards the water body. And this grower attempted to implement a sediment control BMP with a fiber roll going cross-sectional to the flow. And I'm saying that that was a good try. The issue here is that one fiber roll was not adequate. I mean, it got overwhelmed pretty quickly. A better approach would have been to install multiple fiber rolls in series, and that would have slowed the flow down. Maybe you're wondering, well, do I have to leave fiber rolls there all the time? No, no. I mean, we think that that's good practice in preparation for rain. It doesn't always rain here. So I think a good practice would be to have your BMP on site and ready to be installed in case that there is a rain event approaching. So in terms of erosion controls, so we've gone to a couple, multiple avocado groves, and we see that luckily the erosion control seems to be fairly easy in terms of you just leave the vegetation in place. So vegetation, roots in place, weeds, we don't care what it is, dead leaves, mulch, all of that will help keep the sediment particles from mobilizing in the first place. So that looks good. And if you're in a situation where you have dirt roads and you need to use them all the time, it's more challenging for sure because you can't put that vegetation with the root structures to keep the soil there. We have to think of different ways to make it work. So in this particular case on the right, this grower was getting ready for a storm. And when we came for the inspection, they had already placed a series of barriers using sandbags across the road. And again, does it always have to be out there? No, but they've learned over a couple of rainstorms how to do this. And keep in mind that this is an iterative process. We know we're not going to get it right on the first time, but the idea is to see what works and what doesn't work during storm events and see where we can improve. So in summary, I just wanted to say that when it comes to your operation, keep it clean and we'll be in good shape. Also, I didn't have any pictures of fertilizer use because that doesn't really lend itself to photos, but remember that the agricultural uses are contributing to impairments in the watershed. So use the fertilizer sparingly is my message. Stay current with your third-party group membership because that is a requirement for this program. Learn about, implement, and maintain best management practices, and these will be unique to your site. And finally, do what we can to take action to prevent and minimize the discharge of waste. I just also wanted to mention that our program, the Ag Order, We will be revising the permit language in the order, and we'll begin the public process next year. What that involves is public workshops. And what we do is we also draft we issue a draft permit for review and comment. And that is your opportunity to look at the requirements and comment on them. And you'd be surprised. Again, I've been at the water board for several years, and the public comments really help shape the program. So it's our job to respond to those comments. Sometimes we make changes to the permit, not all the time, based on public review. And your coalition will most likely make comments on your behalf. But I really do want to invite you. It's really helpful for us to hear from the dischargers themselves. We want to know what your concerns are and what your recommendations are. And this is my final slide. That's it for me. I'm available for questions. I just wanted to end on this note. I think it's a beautiful picture of looks like an orange grove right next to the San Diego River. Just as a reminder that we all live upstream, we all live in a watershed, and we all need to do our part to protect our waterways. So that's it for me, guys. Thank you for your attention. What time is it? Okay, so I am available to answer questions if there are any. I see one from Miss Antonioli. Oh, you're on mute. Is there a way to unmute?
Let's see, I asked to unmute.
Sorry.
That's good.
Sometimes during storms and the creek runs more prolifically than other times,
Sure.
we've actually seen runoff occur from someplace we don't know, but it's clearly construction runoff or something
Okay.
spraying the water. What action should we take in that situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the problem is run onto your property. We understand can be problematic, and so I think, I mean, it's hard for me to answer without seeing the specific situation. But if there's a way to route the runoff around your property, but maybe that's not an option. But
It's going right into
so
the creek that then flows down
then
through our
flows.
property.
Yeah. So you're not, it's not your responsibility to try to fix everyone else's wrongs, for sure. But I think that you should do your best attempts to not the more you can prevent flooding on your own site, the better off it is in terms of water quality. And then I don't know, is there a way to sort of, I was going to say, you can't reroute the water like around your operation or anything?
It's like maybe a half a mile
Yeah.
upstream, and then it's
Yeah.
clearly construction dust or
Yeah.
almost like dried concrete or something like that powdered.
Well,
and it was
so
just
if
so I
you
don't know
think,
how to do that.
okay. So I was gonna say, if it's an upstream neighbor, that's a little bit harder for me to answer. But if you think that the waste that's coming into your property may be from a construction site, the construction industry is also regulated by my office.
Okay.
And they have a discharge permit. And actually, I spent several years regulating construction sites. They are also supposed to minimize and prevent discharges of waste. So it could be that they are out of compliance with their discharge permit. And if that is, you think could be the situation, then by all means, that's why we have stormwater hotlines. You can call your local municipality wherever you live is a good place to start. And then you can also make contact with us, for sure.
Great. Thank you.
By the way, I meant to introduce my coworker. Jason, are you there? And I just wanted you guys to also see Jason because he is also one of our field inspectors, and he's my colleague. And so if you get a call from him or for some reason, he's a good resource also for questions. So Jason, can you say hello real quick?
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Jason. I work with Christina in the Ag Department. I've been here for about a year and a half now. Looking forward to working with you guys in the Ag community to make the order work well for you guys and us as well.
Great, thanks. So Farm Bureau members, do you have a question you would like to ask the regulator?
And again, if you don't want to speak out loud, you can put your question in the chat box as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that part. Yes, Katie is managing the chat. If anybody wants to throw in a question.
Christina, this is Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Are there any resources available for like water testing?
What do you mean by resources? I'm not sure.
Like any grants or anything, or is there a way to get any free testing, or do you have to go through like a lab type of test?
Well, if you mean in terms of regulatory compliance, then you would have to go through a certified lab. I don't know much about if there's like little kits that you can test and send back, but it wouldn't, that could be useful for your own purpose. But if you wanted to, that wouldn't work for trying to get credit for regulatory compliance. It would have to be a certified lab. I think it's called ELAP certified. And there's a few in California, but it's not something that's widespread. I could help you out with that, but I think that to answer your question, yeah, that's why we form the coalitions to do the testing for you.
Okay.
Let's see. I have a few different questions. One says, our lemons and grapefruits are organic. Do we put them as pesticides even if they're organic?
No. So even if you're organic farming, I think the question is organic farming are organic farmers required to enroll? Is that the question? I'm not sure.
While I wait for that, then hold on, I lost my thing. I have a few on here. A creek passes through one of our sites. Water runs through it only like once a year when it rains a lot. Does that count as a water body?
Good question. Yes, it does count as a water body. With our weather patterns, we for sure they're called ephemeral streams. And wait, is that the right word? I think that's the right word. So the streams, they're intermittent, and so we don't always see water in them. And a dry creek is still considered a creek, and it's still so that area you would need to try to protect and keep clean. Yes.
Is fertilizer a compost and a manure? And what do they mean by compost and manure management sites?
Okay, so again, so I think I showed you a picture of a compost pile. And so again, anything can be considered waste if it leaves the site. So I'm sorry, Katie, what was the question? It was,
let me go back.
Is it considered?
Is fertilizer a compost and manure? And what do they mean by compost and manure management sites?
Oh, that might be in conjunction with a different program. Maybe with the County of San Diego, but I don't actually know the answer. I think I would gather that there are designated sites for disposing of those types of materials, but I don't know much about that, and I can certainly look into it. I think that that might be a program that is run by the County of San Diego. And I don't know if there's anybody from the county who wants to jump in today, but please, if anybody knows the answer, I'm not sure about that. So again, I'm not sure. I'm going back to that question about grapefruits and oranges. Again, it doesn't. The requirements are that if you're selling or if you have a farm with the intent to make a profit, that you're required to participate in this program. So it doesn't matter if you're using pesticides or you're practicing organic farming. I'm not sure if that was the question or not.
Let's see, fertilizer, compost, and manure piles cannot be within 100 feet of water body, and runoff must be kept out of the water body. Manage those materials so that they do not have runoff.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I mean, it's a good practice not to be, that's why I talked about those buffer zones. It's a good practice not to have piles of waste, or I should say some sort of pollutant that could become waste. It's a good practice not to have it near a water body. But I think that the order actually has specific language to compost, and I think that person is right. The order says that thou shalt not have a compost pile within 100 feet of a water body. So good job, who's ever knowledgeable on the order there.
Does a landowner liability vary if there is a third-party operator, such as a grove manager?
So that's a good question. So the order is issued to owners and operators of the operation, and I believe the order says that we initially take enforcement on who's ever the operator is, but if we can't seem to resolve the non-compliance, then it's actually the landowner that is ultimately responsible. So it's in the best interest of the landowner to hire a management company with good practices and to make sure that they don't get you in trouble.
That's all the questions I have right now.
That's all the questions. Okay. In that case, give it one more minute in case somebody thinks of something. I'll follow up with that designated compost area question though, because I can think of somebody to ask on that one, and then maybe I'll communicate it to the ladies at the Farm Bureau, and then you can maybe pass that information. So, okay, so again, please feel free to reach out to us if you think of a question tomorrow or later, whenever. And again, I just really want to encourage everybody to stay involved with the public process. We can't know what your concerns are if we don't hear directly from you. So it's really important that if you want to help shape the future of this program, that you stay in communication with us. So I guess that's it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. That was fun. I haven't given a presentation in a really long time. I like talking about our mission, and I'm a strong believer in our mission. So it was good to do that again. It's been a while for me. So thank you.
All right. All right, thanks.
Okay.
And I have the attendance for everybody who is looking for credit. So make sure if you didn't see last week's webinar, make sure you contact me so that you can get the information to get both your hours for your education. All right.
Okay.
Done.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thank-
Thank you.
Yep.